This is the Crimson Corner with Bill Riley.
Walks it into the end zone for a Utah touchdown.
Your source for the best insight on everything happening in and around Utah athletics. Now, here's the host of the Crimson Corner, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Crimson Corner podcast. I'm Bill Riley. Great to be with you here as we come to you in almost late June now. Time is just clicking and clicking and clicking by. We're inside of 11 weeks until kickoff as we actually tape the pod this week. We're 72 days until kickoff for Utah football as we broadcast from inside the Utah football building. Our broadcast today brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, Nate Orchard's Window Company, the best in the business. If you need new or replacement windows for your home, let the folks at Advanced Window Products take good care of you. This week's pod, we're going to talk some Utah football. We'll answer last week's question of the week. We'll dive into this week's question of the week. We'll have a player to watch for Utah football who I think could play a big role this fall for the Utes. Have a very special guest on this week's edition of the Crimson Quarter podcast, a former Utah two-time All-American and one of the real stars of American softball. Hannah Flippen is joining us today. Why are we going to talk to Hannah? Well, it's always good to touch base with former Utah greats, but Hannah's back here in Salt Lake City playing professional softball for the new AUSL Utah Talons up on the field where she became famous at the University of Utah, Dumke Family Softball Stadium. So talk a little bit to Hannah Flippen today and find out where she is and find out what it's like playing pro softball in Salt Lake City. Also, there was some big news a little over a week ago. The partnership between the University of Utah and Crimson Brand Partners is finally firm and official. We'll give you some details on that. And a week ago, we told you about the Utah men's basketball Big 12 opponents, who they were playing. We don't know the when, but we do know the where and the who right now. So we'll do the same thing on the women's side of things. As always, if you guys want to interact with me, I would love to hear from you. Shoot me an email, briley@huntsman.utah.edu. That's briley@huntsman.utah.edu. And, I'll respond to you on or off the pod. But if you have questions or comments or thoughts, things you want to run by me, things you want to bring up for discussion, guest suggestions too, share them with me. briley@huntsman.utah.edu. All right, let's start with a little Utah football today, shall we? As I mentioned at the top, as we tape the pod this week, we're 72 days until kickoff. It's hard to believe, right? It felt like the other day we were 150 days away, and then it was 100 days away. Now we're 72 days away. We're coming up on 10 weeks until kickoff, not even practice. We're not talking about practice. We are talking about the real games. Thursday night, September the 3rd, 7 o'clock, Rice-Eccles Stadium. The Idaho Vandals come in from Moscow, Idaho, to play the Utes in the regular season opener. The last time, it's been a minute since Utah played Idaho. The last time they played, actually, Idaho won. 1993, October the 2nd, 1993, 33 years ago, the Vandals came storming into Salt Lake and beat Utah 28-17 in the early days of the Ron McBride era. Yeah, that was probably a day to remember. Utah, or to remember if you're a Vandal fan, day to forget if you're a Utah fan. All-time, the Utes 14-12-2 against the Vandals. So they've got the all-time record. They probably saw each other quite a bit back in the day, but have not played now in 33 years. They'll renew that meeting coming up on the 3rd of September. What are they going to have? Don't know quite yet, but I can tell you they weren't great last year. They dropped down to the Big Sky a few years ago. They were 4-8 a year ago. They were 2-6 in Big Sky play, so they're okay. Not quite sure yet. We'll dive a little deeper into the Vandals when we get a little bit closer to the season, but that's who's coming in 72 days from now, 72 days from taping of this podcast. So we'll dive into the Vandals when we get a little bit closer, but just letting you know that football is just around the corner. Also, Big 12 football media days are like 2 weeks away. We'll be in Dallas, Texas. We may have this podcast originate from Frisco, Texas, and the Dallas Cowboys Star practice facility. It's Tuesday the 7th of July, Wednesday the 8th of July, and I'll be down there. Nikki Pena, my producer, will be down there, and a crew from the University of Utah down there gathering content for you, the Utah fans, that will put out on social media channels and also maybe a podcast as well. So that will be coming up. We'll be doing that coming up on July 7th and 8th, and so we'll originate the podcast from there at that point in time. Last week, I asked you guys a question. I've been asking you questions about Utah football that I love your feedback on, so drop me an email if you would. The question last week is, will Utah extend their NCAA record streak of interceptions returned for touchdown, pick six streak, to 23 years this year? It's at 22 years. It was extended a year ago by Jackson Benny. There were a couple of pick sixes a year ago, but Jackson Benny, early in the season against Cal Poly, got that record extended. So will it move from 22 to 23 games this year, 23 seasons this year? I'll say yes. I think the streak extends. Between Benny, who's a ball hawk, he just has a nose for the football, and likely playing the safety spot. You've got Elijah Davis in that secondary as well. Trey Reynolds at linebacker has great ball skills. So does John Hall. I think somebody finds their way to the end zone this year and extends that streak to 23 years. Jonathan Fanene began that streak all the way back in 2004, the famous Fiesta Bowl season with Urban Meyer at the helm. But I think that streak extends this year to 23 games. Tell me what you think. Drop me an email, briley@huntsman.utah.edu. This week's question for you: who will lead Utah in touchdowns scored this year? Who will lead the Utes in touchdowns scored? Now, this doesn't count Devin Dampier throwing touchdown passes. This is actual scoring touchdowns. Last year, Utah had a ton. Nakari Rogers led them last year with 11 touchdowns. He was that short yardage specialist, Nakari was. He had 11. Devin Dampier had 10. Bird Ficklin had 10. Wayshawn Parker had 6. Larry Simmons had 6. Braden Pagan, who's a wide receiver for Utah now, had 5 up at Utah State. So there's a lot of people to choose from. Maybe you go for a guy like that I was mentioning a little bit about last week, a guy like, I don't know, Hunter Andrews, who's a running back. He's a tight end. He's kind of an offensive weapon. Maybe you think a guy like Daniel Bray could be that guy. So my question for you today: who leads Utah in touchdowns scored this year? You could go with the easy answer and say Devin Dampier, and you might not be wrong. Bird Ficklin was basically a substitute or a change of pace. He still had 10 touchdowns, second on the team. Wayshawn Parker, he had 6. Maybe he has more this year. I would bet. If I was betting an over-under on Wayshawn Parker touchdowns, I'd go over that 6 number. Then you've got Larry Simmons, who had 6 touchdowns, but they came in like the last 4 games of the season, 5 games of the season, when he really started to create a connection with Devin Dampier. So shoot me an email, briley@huntsman.utah.edu, and you tell me who leads Utah in touchdowns scored for the 2026 season. I can tell you this: you've got a lot of weapons to choose from. I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks with Utah assistant coaches, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they're really excited about the guys they have that they're going to put the ball in their hands. So you have choices. You give me your choice. I'll tell you who I think it is next week on the podcast. All right, quick player to watch before we get to our special guest. I'm highlighting a different player every week that I think can have a really big impact this year. And if Utah is going to be good, I think these players have to have an impact. Last week, we went on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about Hunter Andrews. He's listed as a tight end, but he's an offensive weapon that can do a lot of different things. I'm going to go back to the defensive side of the ball. We've mentioned a few guys on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Cash Dillon this week. Cash Dillon is a redshirt sophomore defensive end. He has played sparingly throughout his career, though he played much more last year, as you would expect, second, third year in the program. 3.5 sacks last year, but he created a lot of pressures. He's a guy that the defensive coaches have been really, really high on since the day he stepped on campus. Played at Corner Canyon, was a stud at Corner Canyon, was a great get for Utah a few years ago in the recruiting cycle. I think he's got a chance to be the defensive end, meaning the guy that, we talked a couple of weeks ago with one of our questions, would Utah have a double-digit sack guy this year? I said probably not, but if there is a guy on this team that could be the double-digit sack guy, I think it's Cash Dillon. I just think he has the right makeup. I think he's been trending that direction in his time since getting here, and I think this might be the year where he's a starter. I'm not saying he's a starter now. Nothing's given. There's other guys in the room, he and Lance Holtzclaw, Ethan Day, Paul Fitzgerald. But I'm going to pencil him in my mind right now as a likely starter. And I just think that this is a guy that has a huge upside, and he's going to be given his opportunity full-time this year. So I'm going to go with Cash Dillon being the sack leader on this team. But what Utah needs is sacks, pressures from the edge. Pressures sometimes are every bit as good as sacks because you force the quarterback to get rid of that football quickly and maybe make decisions they don't want to. And Dillon can be that guy. I don't know if he'll be the leader of that defensive end room, but he's been in there the longest. So keep an eye on Cash Dillon. I think he's a player to watch this year at defensive end who might be poised to have a big year at that defensive end spot for the University of Utah. Again, give me your thoughts if you'd like to. B. Riley at huntsman.utah.edu. All right, let's grab a break. When we come back on the other side, our special guest, one of the all-time greats on the diamond at the University of Utah, and now she's back on the diamond at the University of Utah, not playing or coaching for the Utes, but rather playing for the new professional softball team at the University of Utah that plays at the University of Utah, the Utah Talons of the AUSL. Hannah Flippen joins us next on the Crimson Corner.
The best insight on all things Utah athletics. It's the Crimson Corner Podcast.
Pleased to welcome into this week's edition of the Crimson Corner a true Utah great and legend, and she's back in town now, kind of where it all began for her, collegiately at least. She's playing for the brand new softball club here in Salt Lake City, the Utah Talons, the AUSL, in its second season, and Utah now with its first year as a full-fledged organization. And, of course, perhaps, I don't want to upset Charmel or Amy or any of those other greats, but one of the all-time greats certainly in University of Utah softball history, and now member of the Utah Talons, Hannah Flippen, with us here on the Crimson Corner. How are you, Hannah?
I'm so great. And wow, what a list of names to be roped into with. I'm so honored, and I hope they feel the same way that I'm part of the club.
So let's start here, and then we'll kind of backtrack and come back forward again. Yeah. We're sitting here talking, and you are at Dumke Family Softball Stadium, getting yourself healthy again, but playing professional softball where the career really blossomed collegiately. How's it feel to be back in Salt Lake?
Yeah, I'm at my second home. This is my backyard. I'm sitting at the Dumke Family Softball Stadium, and so it feels like my second home here. I'm so happy to be back. It has been beautiful. It's been awesome. The fan engagement has been incredible, and so just so lucky to be a Utah Talon.
You were part of the inaugural season a year ago, and they came through last year and played a series of games here in Salt Lake City. When you heard that Utah was going to be one of the permanent homes, I'm sure you weren't shocked because you know what kind of a softball community this is, but what did it mean to you to hear your second hometown was going to have a team?
Yeah, I actually, honestly, was a little surprised because the markets were so competitive last year. And here in Salt Lake City, we had a phenomenal turnout. And so I definitely thought there was a chance, but you know, like Utah's kind of always the underdog and they're not usually the front runner. And so to have us have a home base in Utah has been so special. And I am so lucky to share this part of my life with so many awesome people and kind of molding the two worlds together, my Utah softball family and my Athletes Unlimited family. And everybody has been so awesome from the Utah side to the Athletes Unlimited side. And they're just seeing the beauty and the greatness that this place is. And they're like, Hannah, we get it. We know why you went here. We know why you loved it. So that's been really refreshing to hear as well.
I'm sure a lot of your teammates played here collegiately, came through here. There's a lot of Pac-12 teammates that you have on this roster, but how have they found being here and having Utah as their kind of their summer home?
Yeah, I think when you come and play here for a weekend series, you don't really get to dive into what the city is about. And so they're getting to do that. They're going up into the mountains and taking some hikes. We're going to hopefully rent a boat here at the end of the month and do some of those things that are all that's what Utah's all about. And so I think it's been really fun for them to dip their toe in the water when they come out here and for a weekend series. But now they're really embracing what it's like to be a Salt Lake City kind of resident.
How's the league in year number 2 for you? Obviously, it was an inaugural year last year, and there was kind of a novelty to it. But now it's trying to set some roots and get some real firm foundation set. How have you guys? Again, it's only been a few weeks, but how's year number 2 been?
Yeah. I mean, I said this last year, but it's blowing me out of the water. Like, I didn't think that it could get better than last year, but of course it could, because now we have home places and home fans and the home field advantage. And so many of those things are coming into play this year, and it's showing up. I mean, we're here, we taught the fans our cheers and what we want them to hoot and holler about and our traditions that we want to establish. And they're bought in and they're all into it. So I think that's been a really fun thing to do, is as this being our first inaugural year as the Utah Talons, we get to kind of set the standard and set the traditions and come up with some fun things for the fans to engage in. And I think across the league, the players are really enjoying that connection between the fans and coming home to a home field advantage, and where everybody here is going to be rooting for us and not for just their favorite softball players that might be in the league in general. Like, these are Utah Talons fans here.
How much do you think the rise of this league is coinciding with the popularity of collegiate softball and the televising of regionals, super regionals, and obviously the popularity in recent years of the College World Series?
I think it's just they're right in line with each other. I think the college game is probably ahead of us a little bit, but we are just riding off the coattails of that. We're taking people like Nyjah, Reese Atwood, Carlin Pickens, Dakota Kennedy, and just taking their fan bases, and now they're becoming fans of the Utah Talons or the Carolina Blaze and whatnot. But it is so special coming from somebody who is a lot older than a lot of the population of this league right now. I grew up watching Major League Baseball. I grew up watching the San Diego Padres, and everybody on that team was my idol. I wanted to play shortstop for the San Diego Padres. And so now for kids to dream about being the shortstop for the Utah Talons or the center fielder or the leadoff hitter or the starting pitcher, for them to see what they can actually become is really special. And I think that's a big reason why we're continuing the trend, is because these little kids are dreaming to be us one day. They were at first dreaming to be college athletes, and now they're dreaming to be professional softball players, which is really special.
When did you see the game start to shift, whether it's in popularity or whatever? It's weird to say this. I won't say that. You're 9 years removed from your last year at Utah. So I'm going to guess the game is, at least the collegiate game, is a little bit different. Maybe the professional game is too. You educate me. But when did you begin to see the shift in the game?
Yeah, I feel like my generation 9 years ago is kind of when things started to turn the table a little bit. People were coming into college bigger, faster, and stronger. And now 10 years later, we are bigger and faster and stronger than when I was. And so that has been the biggest jump, I think. Obviously, when you see some of the power numbers that are happening in the college game, I think that is what is attributing to it. Like, kids are coming into college more prepared, more mature, more developed in a body standpoint. And then in college, they just kind of teach you the tricks and the trade of the game and how to solve the puzzle of getting on base. So I think there's that standpoint that's changed so much. And then just the visibility. I mean, we were on the Pac-12 network, and you either had to buy the package or have the account to stream it. And now it's still the same, but every game in every conference is streamed somewhere, whether it's YouTube or ESPN or any of these places. And so the visibility has grown immensely. Like, when I was in college, we had maybe every other series was on the Pac-12 network or Pac-12 online. And now you can watch every single game. And in the same way that the visibility is important, I think that's also changed our game in the strategic sense of I can watch every pitch that Carlin Pickens has thrown in the last 4 years before I even face her for the first time next week. And so that's an advantage to the hitter, just as it is to the pitchers. They can see where all my little weaknesses are and attack those things because we've been on TV so much and because you can see the game. So I think we're trending in the right direction, and we're following in MLB's footsteps of here's all the data and technology to be great. So use it and pick it apart and figure out how to be great with all of that information.
How's your game evolved? I mean, from the time you left Utah, you're an All-American player, the whole thing, but you've played professionally now for 9 years.
Yeah.
How are you a different player today than when you played on that field behind you as a collegiate?
Yeah. Jordan Woolery, who is one of our rookies from UCLA, asked me this the other day. She's like, do you feel like you've changed since college? And I just like had to stop. I'm like, have I changed? Like, I am not even close to the same person that I was when I got here, which is crazy to think about because I do think that I had a good college career. And knowing what I know now, I'm like, oh my God, I did so many dumb things in college that I think physically was probably at my best maybe like 2 years ago, but now the physical and the mental side are coming together where I have so much softball knowledge that I'm using, whereas in college I didn't know half of the things that I know now. So I don't necessarily think there's been some overhaul. Well, there has been in my swing for sure. Defensively, kind of just doing the thing, like being athletic, making plays, but from an IQ standpoint and from an approach in the box standpoint, that's where things have changed. And that has just gone through having conversations with people like Amanda Chittister, Gwen Svekis, Vic Hayward, some of the girls that I played with. Because of the formats and the leagues that we're in, we didn't really have coaches along with us through our development. And so we kind of coached each other up and had those conversations to grow our own softball IQ and take pieces of their game with me, which is why I think I've evolved so much. It's not some big overhaul, but I take pieces from everybody along the way, which turns into this big change over 10 years.
All right, 9 years, 10 years is a lot of time.
Yeah.
And all those conversations, if you could go back in time, 9, 10 years, and grab senior-to-be Hannah Flippen, or even go back 12 or 13 years and grab young Hannah Flippen coming out of Bonita, California to Utah, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give?
The number one piece of advice I would give, there's probably so many things, but I mean, I think it was my biggest blessing and curse as a hitter. I just got in the box and I was like, see ball, hit ball. I was like, it looks outside. People are like, is it a curveball? I'm like, I don't know. It looks outside. Like, I didn't overanalyze the game, which I think helped me in a lot of ways. But knowing what I know now about things like effective velocity and pitch calling and sequencing, that would have blown my game out of the water. I mean, I would have been so much better than what I am now. Had I known that back then. And I think that's what's happening in the college game. I think they're educating these kids on why do pitchers throw certain sequences? Why do they throw a changeup in a certain count? And so knowing some of those things, those softball IQ things, I would have loved to know in my freshman year and take that through my career.
All right, let's go back. You're a senior in high school. Why Utah? What was it about coming to Salt Lake City that made you want to come up here?
Yeah. Well, I'm from California and I wanted to stay somewhat close to home. I actually really wanted to stay in San Diego, but the opportunities weren't there. So I was like, okay, I'll look a little farther. And little did I know that this place would have had me on cloud 9. Like, I showed up to campus and I felt like I was floating the whole weekend. I had my visit, and it was because of the mountains. It was the football game. It was the facility. I mean, brand new softball stadium with awesome facility. Was really intriguing. Obviously, as kids, we like the nice shiny things. And so that was definitely enticing. The coaching staff, who I'm still super tight with today, that is the reason. That coaching staff, Amy Hogue, Maggie Laveri, Cody Thompson, Russ Paskins, like, they are the reason why I'm sitting here today back at Utah. I had dinner with Amy last night and so great. I texting with Maggie Laveri last week. Cody Thompson's coming to the game tonight. So those relationships that were formed when I was in the recruiting process is the reason why I wanted to be here. It felt like home. They love softball so much. They want to win so much. They care so much, but they also cared about, how is Hannah as a human? How are your family members? How are you today? Like, just those things that mold of bringing my two worlds together of softball and family life. But yeah, and now people are seeing the mountains and seeing this place. And they're like, wow, I didn't realize how great it was. And I was like, I didn't either until I came on a visit here. And now I'm trying to tell everybody about it.
Great recruiting tool. I'm sure Amy's happy about that.
Yes.
Do you think that still works today, Hannah? Collegiate athletics, not as much in softball as maybe in basketball or football, but there's still now a financial component to it.
Right.
The transfer portal is something that's changed. As much as we talk about money, the ability just to leave if something isn't going your way. Do you still think those things that you fell in love with and that people maybe from your era fell in love with, do you think those still resonate today with kids?
I think that everybody finds their fit in their home. So like for me, it was important, but now it is like college athletics is run more like a business. And so at the end of the day, it's what is the end goal for that program, for that player, and they find what fits. What I know is that Utah is doing the best of both worlds to the best of their ability, where I still see Amy Hogue every day, and she is still pouring into these kids and trying to create those relationships. And because it's not all about softball, I'm not going to be able to do this for the rest of my life as much as I would want to. It's about, am I turning into a great human? Can I live a life like with my own responsibilities and take care of myself and stand up in rooms full of people and say hard things and just learn how to be an adult and how to live this life that is so hard. Like, and I do always say, I'm like, I don't know how people learn life lessons without softball, but I sure as heck would not have learned any of the things that I learned without the coaching staff here at Utah. And I do think that that is in the forefront of their recruiting process of like, we want you to be great softball players. We want to win a national championship, but we also want you to walk out of this place able to live your own life and be able to take care of yourself, have responsibility, and just live in this crazy big world that we have here.
What was there a life lesson that softball taught you or has taught you, or even Amy in that coaching staff you've talked about taught you that you took away from Utah and you still use it in your daily life or even your pro career today?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so many things, but two of the things that I actually talked to Amy about last night, one of them being like vulnerability. And for example, with this Utah Talons team, we're all just a bunch of girls coming together wanting to play softball. But in order to do that well, you have to know each other a little bit deeper than just like a surface level. And that's kind of scary. Like, you don't want to put yourself out there because what if somebody doesn't like me, or what if I say the wrong thing? And so I do think that vulnerability is a big piece of sport, and it's a big thing that we're missing in all walks of life right now. And so that's one big thing that I've learned, to just try and be more vulnerable. And it might hurt, but it also might be so great, and you just don't know until you put yourself out there. And that caring is cool, and caring deeply about something is really cool. Getting to know Montana and what her dogs' names are and how many acres of land she has and all of these things, like that is important to Montana. And so like, I want to know more about it. I want to know more about why Montana is who she is. So caring is cool is one of the things that I learned. And the other thing that I learned, and now I'm blanking on it, is it's gone from me. I guess that's what's going to stick with me though, is that caring is cool.
Caring is cool. We're in a World Cup year this year, and we have seen the world descend on the United States. And I was lucky enough to call professional soccer and do some international stuff in my career, and it's really fun. And we're seeing the world descend and seeing different cultures come to this country. In the United States men's national team's having so far a good run. You've represented the United States, and I still think continue to represent the United States. What's it been like for you? You've represented Utah, you've played professionally, but when you've worn that jersey for Team USA and played overseas or played in this country, what's that been like for you?
It's been so surreal. I mean, when you put on that uniform, you feel like you can do anything you want in the world, and everybody in the world has your back. And I think that's one of the big messages that's passed on through USA Softball alumni, is it's not just you stepping in the box. It is you and all of your USA Softball sisters that have your back and are rooting you on. And so that's been the most special part, is you just feel like you're on top of the world, and you have the whole softball community cheering you on and wishing you well. And also, we are a powerhouse as USA Softball. And so I think we bring a lot of like fear into other opponents. And so to step on the field with pride, because we are so feared and we are such a powerful team is really an honor. I mean, softball is a hard game, and so to walk on on some of these fields and be feared just by the way that we present ourselves is a really special feeling, and it's a really proud feeling. I play with so much pride when I'm playing with USA Softball, and I think the best thing is whatever the teams look like, because they do change a lot, and we add people and we remove people, and it's a hard environment to be in. But I think at the end of the day, everybody's mission right now is 2028 and to get a gold medal in 2028. And so it is really a sisterhood of like, who is going to get us that gold medal and how are we going to do it together? And even though there's only 15 on that roster, we have thousands of women who are wanting that gold medal for those 15 players, whether they're on the roster or not. And so it's a really special sisterhood and bond that has been created in that USA program.
You were kind of the little guy, the underdog when you played at Utah. You know, you were the UCLAs or the Stanfords or whatever it was. What's it like to be the big dog and be on Team USA and be the hunted instead of the hunter?
Right. It definitely feels surreal. Even within Athletes Unlimited, I'm on the older end of all of these players now. So it feels like it happened in the blink of an eye, to where I went from the young gun to now I'm the big dog. I'm the person that everybody's looking at to say, where are we eating? What time's VP? When are we going to throw? But I take pride in it because I want those young athletes to want to be me one day and want to be the leader and want to leave things better than they found it and create clarity. And so I, in this role, am just trying to be a person of service and just serve my people and serve the softball community so that we can continue that awesome trajectory that we're on and the trending in the right direction. So I'm honored to be still involved, and I'm still hanging with the young guns, and I'm going to stay keeping up with them until we get that gold medal. So
hang on as long as you can, Hannah. Hang on as long as you can. When you're not softballing, you're a neurotechnician. What is that?
Am.
What is
It's a great question. So funny. One time I was playing with the USA team. We were overseas, and the Australian commentators said, "Oh yeah, Hannah's a neurologist. She's really studying those pitches." I'm like, whoa, you're giving me way too much credit now. But basically, I work very, very part-time for one of my teammates' moms, former teammate KJ Harshman. Her mom is the owner of the practice. She is the neuropsychologist. And people come in with brain injuries, early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, just any sort of things where their brain isn't functioning the way that they remember it or want it to. They come in and I take them through a series of tests. I ask them, what day is it? What season is it? Where are we right now? And a whole bunch of other things. So I get to interact with some people and try to help them navigate through this challenging part in their life. I just play a very small role in administering the test. I score the test, and then I give it to the doctor, and she decides what the patient needs to do or work on or why they're feeling a certain way.
Is that what you want to do long term, or maybe coaching in Hannah Flippen's future?
Totally. With the pro softball world right now, this can't always be a full-time job. And so the neuropsychologist, neurotechnician stuff is truly a part-time job in the off season so that I can make a few extra bucks and keep myself busy and interact with people. And so that, although it does fall under the umbrella of what I studied here at the University of Utah, I studied psychology. But the long-term goal, I think I need to be coaching this game in some sort of capacity, whether it's the college game, whether it's Athletes Unlimited, whether it's doing lessons. I have spent the time 9 to 5 in the office in the fluorescent lights, and I'm like, this is crazy. I can't believe people do this. So I need to be outside hitting a softball, throwing a softball somewhere. But yeah, that's probably my path, is going to be in the coaching world somewhere.
Touching the dirt and turf and grass,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
All right, before we go, let our listeners know what they can do, when they can come out and see you, what the league's all about. I know it's AUSL.com is the website, but you guys are playing through what, July, early August?
Yeah, well, the championship will be at the end of July, and so we'll be playing, I think we have 2 more home series, and then we'll be on the road a little bit. So watch us on TV. We'll be on ESPN, MLB Network, CBS Sports. But yes, you can find all of that information on the AUSL.com, and come root for your talents. It's really fun. These games are really fun. The crowd is so into it, and it makes this experience really enjoyable. So I'm so grateful. Go Utah, go Utah Talons. So fun.
Hey, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's great to have you back in town, and we'll catch up again soon. Thanks, Hannah.
Awesome. Thank you.
The best insight on all things Utah athletics. It's the Crimson Corner Podcast.
Big thank you to Hannah Flippen for taking a few minutes with us here on the Crimson Corner. If you get a chance, they've got, as you heard her say, they've got a couple of more series up at Dumke Family Softball Stadium. It is, if you like softball, maybe you got hooked on the College World Series this year in Oklahoma City. Maybe you're just a Utah softball fan. Maybe your kids play softball. Take them out, because this is literally the highest level of softball anywhere in the world. You heard Hannah say it. The Americans are the gold standard for softball in the world, kind of like we are in some other sports, basketball and others. But these are the best players who have been playing professional softball. Hannah's been playing professional softball for 9 years. But get out there and watch them play. They've enjoyed being here. It's kind of cool to have another professional sports franchise in a growing sport here. So get out and watch the Utah Talons. You can find them on theausl.com is where you'll find their schedule, and you can get tickets up there as well. So wanted to touch on a couple of quick things here before we get out of here. A lot of you have heard a lot of things going on for months now with regard to the University of Utah and their new partnership with a private equity company called Utah Capital. It was announced last December, and it has been, kind of months in the making, but finally, about a week or so ago, the partnership was finally finalized with a new company called Crimson Brand Partners. And the partnership has been signed. It officially goes into, working order July the 1st. But it's a new company that's been created in conjunction between the University of Utah and a company called Utah Capital out of New York. They're a private equity company. In this new day and age where money is becoming so important to be able to compete, it's always been important, but in today's day and age, especially in the power sports like men's basketball and football and women's basketball, you just simply have to have as much financial advantages at your disposal as you can. And the university, driven by Mark Harlan, Director of Athletics, and University President Taylor Randall, have been working for a number of years now and trying to put a deal like this together. And really what they're trying to do is drive revenue growth for athletics and the university, expand commercial opportunities for the university and athletics, and strengthen support for Utah athletics. And they're doing this by creating this new brand called Crimson Brand Partners. They're going to help keep Utah sports programs financially sustainable while protecting the core mission of the university, which is education and research. So Crimson Brand Partners will be in charge of basically sponsor. There's so many arms to this, but they're going to be in charge of branding for the university and for athletics, creating all kinds of revenue opportunities and sponsorship opportunities to generate revenue. Now, it's not a licensing deal. This is an operating partnership between the university and Crimson Brand Partners. It's going to help grow the Utah brand. It's going to grow revenue. They're going to also, and you're thinking, okay, well, how does this impact me? Well, it's going to impact your school and your athletics, but it's also going to help create a better game day experience, whether it's at Rice-Eccles Stadium or whether it's at the Huntsman Center or whether it's at the baseball stadium or the softball stadium. Wherever you go experience Utah athletics, Crimson Brand Partners is going to try to help create a better game day experience as well, all while freeing up university dollars for scholarships, research, and students. So a gentleman by the name of Matt Webb is going to be heading up Crimson Brand Partners. He brings 2 decades of experience in professional sports, most recently with the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans in Louisiana. And I'm hoping to have Mark Harlan and Matt Webb, either join me in this space or maybe on Mark's podcast, hear it from Harlan in the very near future, to talk more about this. It's an exciting time in Utah athletics. There's no doubt about that. And you're going to see more and more and hear more and more about Crimson Brand Partners beginning right around July the 1st. So stay tuned for that, and we'll have more information in this space about it as well. But I just wanted to kind of reaffirm maybe some of the stuff you had been hearing recently about it. But it's a deal that's finally done. And Crimson Brand Partners is going to be a big part of University of Utah athletics moving forward. All right, one more thing to talk about here today. Utah women's basketball. We told you last week that Utah men's basketball finally found out who they're going to be playing and where they're going to be playing this year in Big 12 action. The Big 12 announced last week, and for both men's and women's basketball, the partners, the home partners, the home and away partners, and the away partners. Now, we don't have where and when they'll be, but we do know the who of this. So we told you about the men last week. This week, we'll tell you about who the women are playing in basketball. They're home and away partners. You have 3 of those. They'll be playing BYU in Salt Lake and in Provo. They do that with all the rivals. They're going to be playing Arizona in Salt Lake City and in Tucson, and they'll be playing Arizona State in Tempe and Salt Lake City. So those are the 3 schools they'll be playing home and away. The schools they'll play only at the Huntsman Center: Colorado, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Houston, and UCF. Those are the schools that are playing only at the Huntsman Center. And then the road-only schools for Utah women's basketball are Iowa State, so they'll go to Ames. They'll go to Lubbock to play Texas Tech. They'll go to Fort Worth to play TCU. They'll go to Baylor to play the Bears, Cincinnati, and West Virginia. So they'll spend a lot of time in the state of Texas with Tech, TCU, Baylor, Iowa State. Then they head back east to play Cincinnati and West Virginia. If you need any information on those schedules, feel free to go to utahutes.com. They have a full schedule rundown of. They don't have dates yet. Again, we'll be getting the dates and the non-conference schedules coming soon. But there's information on the scheduling for both Utah men's and Utah women's basketball up at utahutes.com. Again, if you could, give us a good rating on the podcast, wherever you get this thing. Feel free to give us a good thumbs up, a 5-star, whatever that might happen to be, and we would love that. We certainly would. Thanks to Hannah Flippen for jumping on board. Thanks to you guys for listening in. Thanks to Nikki and Nathan and Paul for helping to put this thing together. And until next week, I'm Bill Riley saying, go Utes.
You've been listening to the Crimson Corner podcast with Bill Riley. Bill is back next week with the latest on Utes. Download previous Crimson Corner episodes on all major podcast platforms.